Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. We are here for an important purpose today, which is we received a letter on Friday from the Department of Justice demanding that we repeal the city's ban on assault weapons that has stood in Denver for more than 37 years. And they have requested that response by today. So we're here today to let them know that our answer is hell no. No, we will not roll back a common sense policy that has kept weapons of war off of these city streets for 37 years. No, we will not put first responders at greater risk every time they respond to a dangerous incident. No, we will not go back to a time when folks are worried about walking into movie theaters or grocery stores or public elementary schools. No, we will not make families who've been traumatized by losing loved ones face the risk of being traumatized again. Our simple answer is no. I'm delighted to have here with us partners from all around the city, our police chief, our district attorney, student leaders from Students Demand Action, as well as family members who themselves have lost people that they love at the hands of assault weapons. As you know, Colorado has a long and painful history with assault weapons. In Colorado, you only have to say the places: Columbine, Aurora, Boulder, and the rest of the memories and pain comes flooding back. You don't need a long reminder here. It lives right at the top of all of our hearts. All of those places where weapons of war destroyed what were supposed to be moments of joy. Right? Kids sitting at a high school lunch table talking about prom dates. Or two friends walking into a movie theater with popcorn and a Coca-Cola. Or a mom and her kids shopping for ice cream sandwiches in a grocery store. There are too many Coloradans we've had to say goodbye to in too many places because of the impact of assault weapons. And we are proud of the fact that many of the people behind me have led efforts in this state to take courageous action. We've actually refused to accept the status quo and made significant changes that have made the state safer. I was proud to help work on the efforts around high-capacity magazine bans at the state level, background checks. Senator Sullivan and others have led on major efforts on everything from red flag laws to changing the age of ownership for long guns from 18 to 21, background checks. All of those very important steps have made a difference, and we will not turn back on any of those. And so I'm going to invite up some other partners here who have led this work for a long time, but I just want to say before I do that, that there is a critical question we face today. When we look back at each of those stories, there are moments of tragedy, and there are lessons. One of the heartbreaking lessons of the Aurora Theater shooting was that we lost 12 Coloradans that night, there with their friends and families to celebrate moments of joy. But the even more heartbreaking part is that we could have lost dozens more on that same night. The only reason we didn't was that the shooter that came in with a gun with a 100-round magazine, that magazine jammed. Were it not for the basic malfunction of that tool, he had the capacity to kill dozens more residents in our state that night. We can't leave that to chance anymore, and we can't put folks at risk in our everyday life. This city and this state has done courageous, common sense things to say we can both protect the Second Amendment and we can pass common sense legislation that keeps people safer. We will do nothing that makes this city less safe and nothing that dishonors the incredibly hard work of the folks who've dedicated their lives to making sure they did not lose people they love in vain. That is what today's response is about for us. I want to thank our council president for being here, for all of her courageous work on this. And I want to introduce a fellow council member, our council member at large, who both led much of this effort at the state legislature and is a strong advocate for gun safety right now. Please welcome to the stage Councilwoman Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Serena Gonzalez-Gutierrez, and I am one of the Denver City Council members at large. And like our mayor, I also had the opportunity to serve in the state legislature when we passed monumental legislation, and I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize Senator Tom Sullivan, who is here today. And I will say we served together in the State House. And Not a week went by that Senator Sullivan, now Senator Sullivan, then Representative Sullivan, didn't remind us of those tragic events and why he was there to do the work that he did and to remind us and to make sure that we knew the importance. Assault weapons take lives. That's exactly what they're made for. We are proud of our city's long-time decision to ban these weapons, and we, including myself, will fight back to protect our students, our families, and our loved ones should Trump administration try to take these protections away. This idea is not abstract. In Colorado, we have seen way too many tragedies, and I remember this all too well as somebody who was born and raised here in Denver, April 20th, 1999. Where I was a high school senior, just 30 minutes away from Columbine High School, where lives were taken and changed forever. I have lived with that fear for a long, long time. And many people in our community have had the experience of this type of nightmare. And now I'm a mom. And like many other parents in Denver, we send our kids to school every day, trusting that they will make it home safe. It's about whether a teacher can focus on educating, not where to hide themselves or their students. It's about whether communities can gather without fear of a weapon designed for rapid destruction will turn everyday life into tragedy. Gun violence is an epidemic in this country precisely because we have allowed it to become one. A 2024 study from Johns Hopkins has determined that gun violence is the leading cause of death for children under the age of 18. So let me be very, very clear. I am against gun violence in all forms, and I'm against all assault weapons, no matter who is holding them. I'm grateful for many of my former colleagues in the state legislature who, over several years and currently, have worked tirelessly to add protections to people, not only for the people in the city and county of Denver, but for the entire state of Colorado. When our president attacks policies like Denver's assault weapons ban, he isn't just challenging a law, he's challenging our right to decide what keeps our neighborhoods safe. He's asking us to accept more risk, more violence, more grief at the price of inaction. And that's a price that we refuse to pay here in Denver. So if this ban is threatened in court, we will not stand by. We will organize, we will speak out. We will defend the progress we've made, not just with words. Right now, we're speaking words, but with action. Because protecting lives, it's not a partisan issue. It's a moral one. And in this city, in our community, that's a fight I know that we are ready to win. Thank you so much. I will now pass this over to Chief Ron Thomas.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I particularly want to thank those that stand behind me, in particular individuals from Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action, whose continued advocacy, I think, continues to keep Denver safe. I'm Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas, and this ordinance has been in place for my entire career. It was actually passed the year that I joined the Denver Police Department. And I am certain that, not just for my fellow officers, but for all of community, I'm certain that that is why we've had less gun violence with the use of assault weapons. I know, this is one of the reasons why Denver is one of the safest cities in America. I know it's difficult to measure prevention, but I think that the fact that people cannot purchase, own, possess assault weapons in the city of Denver clearly has been a preventative measure. I know that of the 2,100 guns that were recovered in Denver last year, less than 40 of them were assault-style weapons, and so that's less than 2%. And so what that says to me is that that's that many fewer weapons that can fall into the wrong hands and be used to harm members of this community. So I certainly stand with the mayor and thank him for standing up in this situation. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Janet from Everytown.
Good afternoon. I'm Janet Carter, and I am the Managing Director of Second Amendment Litigation at Everytown Law. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to discuss the future of Denver's prohibition on assault weapons and Everytown's commitment to defending this vital public safety measure against the threat and challenge from the Department of Justice. I don't say it lightly that if this threat from the DOJ succeeds, Denver residents will be less safe. Our legal team is here because we refuse to let that happen. These are weapons of war, and they have no place on Denver's streets. You've heard others explain that these weapons cause unimaginable harm, and Denver's ordinance banning them isn't just a life-saving policy, it is also completely constitutional. The Second Amendment is not a blank check for gun rights advocates. It has always allowed for the regulation of particularly dangerous weapons and for weapons that are not in common use for self-defense. That's why efforts to challenge these laws have failed all across the country. Courts applying the new history and tradition test that was established in the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision have overwhelmingly agreed that banning assault weapons is constitutional. These courts have affirmed that our tradition includes the power of local governments to protect their citizens from military-grade weapons that are designed to be maximally lethal. In fact, since 2022, 6 federal courts of appeals have resolved challenges to bans on assault weapons and large-capacity magazines. In every single instance, those courts have upheld the laws. The DOJ's current position is not just an attack on Denver, it is an outlier that ignores the clear and growing consensus in the American judiciary. Finally, I want to emphasize that this fight is about more than just legal precedent. It is about leadership. Everytown Law is incredibly proud to stand alongside Mayor Johnston in this effort. While the DOJ attempts to dismantle local gun safety measures, Mayor Johnston has refused to stand by or to be intimidated. As a leading voice in the Mayors Against Illegal Guns coalition, he knows that his first and most important duty is to the safety of the people of Denver. We are honored to partner with a mayor and a city that leads with courage. Everytown Law will work tirelessly to ensure that this ordinance remains the law, protecting this community and ensuring that weapons of war stay off Denver's streets. Thank you. I'll now hand it over to Tom Mauser.
Thank you, Janet. I think I will just take my chances with the breeze. So the photographers, when it's straight up, okay, that's not the time, okay? Okay. My name is Tom Mauser. I'm the father of Daniel Mauser, who was one of the students killed at Columbine in 1999. And I do my work in honor of Daniel, and that's why whenever I speak publicly, I wear shoes. These are the shoes he was wearing that day. And that's how I honor him in doing this work. I'm also a member for over 26 years of the board for Colorado Ceasefire. As the survivor of a mass shooting and an activist, I've met many other survivors from mass shootings, from tragedies including Aurora, Sandy Hook, Uvalde, Virginia Tech, Las Vegas, and on and on. So I know the devastating impacts on families, friends, and entire communities. That's what drives me. So it likewise drives me to ask, what is the common good in forcing communities to allow more military-style assault weapons into their communities? I find it interesting that the DOJ insists that Denver's ordinance is unconstitutional. I would like to remind the DOJ that it is not the DOJ that determines what is unconstitutional. The courts do that. As Janet pointed out, many lower courts have upheld bans in other places. Ultimately, it may be the Supreme Court that makes that decision. But that court has not made that decision, has not ruled on assault weapons bans. So the DOJ instead wants to do things the lazy way. They want to force state and local governments to end their bans voluntarily. Well, without a court ruling, let's not be bullied by the DOJ to surrender our safety. Let's keep our citizens safe unless and until there is a ruling from the Supreme Court. I find it ironic that the DOJ refers in its letter to the D.C. versus Heller case. Now, that case was about handguns. Justice Scalia, who wrote the majority opinion in that case, wrote that the Washington, D.C. ban on handgun possession in the home violates the Second Amendment. It's true that his ruling also referenced weapons in common use. Well, in the 1920s, machine guns were not in common use until the gun industry foisted them upon America, and America responded saying, "No more." We outlawed them. And today, military-style assault weapons were not in common use until they were foisted upon America by the gun industry. So we should wait to see whether the court will rule on whether military-style assault weapons are weapons in common use and not be bullied by the DOJ. Let's not forget that Scalia also wrote, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever or for whatever purpose. The DOJ will argue that the military-style assault weapons are not dangerous, that they are instead popular and in common use. Well, popular isn't the same as good. And common use has nothing to do with common good. Opioids have been popular and in common use and legal and not abused by many of its users, and yet they have been found to be dangerous and deadly for our society. Assault weapons in common use? Let's keep in mind that the great majority of firearms in this country are not military-style assault weapons. They are handguns and hunting rifles. And also, let's not forget that assault weapons, military-style assault weapons, are disproportionately used in shootings. Finally, if the Trump administration wants to pressure our state and local governments to end their bans on these weapons of war, they ought to be more direct about it. They should openly declare that they and the gun industry want to see more military-style assault weapons on our streets. And then let's see how Americans feel about that. Let's not be bullied. Thank you.
I think we are happy to take a couple of questions if folks have questions, and then there are members here who are happy to do follow-up interviews afterwards. Are there any questions? Yeah, Mark.
Denver is not the only city that has an assault weapons ban. Two-part question. Do you know of any other cities that received the same letter from the Department of Justice? And if not, does this feel like a direct attack on Denver for policies that Denver has?
We don't yet know of other cities that have received it. We're not sure if there could be others. And we don't yet know why it might have been the first one, other than there is one of the attorneys who now is at the Department of Justice, is previously from Colorado and had litigated against these laws in his private practice before he went to the DOJ. So I think he has some history here is our only indication. But other than that, we don't know why Denver was the first letter or if there are others coming.
Does it feel like an attack on Denver personally?
We were surprised by it, particularly given we think the success of this measure that's been in place for 37 years. It's much older than many other cities or states. It has been tested now in 6 different courts of appeals and upheld in all those places, and so we think this is a quite settled legal question, so we were surprised by it. Other questions?
So what's next?
I might give it over to our city attorney, Miko, who both issued the response letter today to talk about anything that might happen next. Miko, do you want to come?
So we sent the letter to the DOJ today saying that we are not going to withdraw our ordinance, and we'll have to wait and see what they do.
Yes.
One of you just clearly state the legal reaction to calling this unconstitutional and what the argument is?
Sure. Do you want to do that?
This ordinance is not unconstitutional. No question about it. 6 court of appeals have found that similar ordinances fully comply with the Second Amendment. And so, like we've heard from many of our speakers today, these are not assault weapons that are in common use and regularly used for self-defense. So we feel really confident that if we are challenged, we will prevail.
And I think Coloradans have a pretty common sense definition of this, which is people believe in the right to bear arms and respect it. I myself been a gun owner since I was 12, and I also think Coloradans realize that if you like to go skeet shooting or hunt deer or even provide for your own self-defense, you do not need a 100-round magazine to do that. And so I think that fits pretty well within where most Coloradans are, I think, in their common sense understanding of what the Second Amendment does and does not do. Yes? Sure. Any information on charges or arrests on people allowing it?
I can share, as I shared earlier, there's been actually very few recoveries of illegal weapons, even fewer chargers. But I think, we would have to do a case-by-case analysis to identify some of the factors which made it less likely that we would prevail in a convictions situation. So certainly far less than the recoveries that we've had, but we have taken people to task for owning assault weapons in Denver.
¿Qué demanda el Departamento de Justicia? ¿Cuál es su respuesta? ¿Y cómo esto puede afectar a los ciudadanos de Denver?
Sí, hoy el Departamento de Justicia demanda que quitamos una ley que tenemos aquí en Denver que hace ilegal la posesión de assault weapons. Y entonces aquí en Denver, también en Colorado, pasamos leyes que prohibir la posesión de esas armas y ha hecho nuestra ciudad y nuestro estado más seguro. Entonces, hemos dicho que no vamos a cambiar esas leyes y no vamos a regresar a un tiempo cuando gente puede llevar armas de guerra aquí en las calles de Denver. Entonces, vamos a seguir enfocando en haciendo la ciudad más seguro, pero no vamos a cambiar esa ley. Yes.
Quick question. The Colorado Attorney General's office has also received a similar letter regarding the state's ban on large capacity magazines. Do you expect the city would join with the state to defend this jointly, or would those be 2 separate cases?
I think it would depend on how the federal government proceeded. If they brought an action against the city individually, we would proceed individually. If they brought it jointly, we would be happy to proceed jointly. And as you said, this is now the law for the entire state of Colorado, so we think they would be coming after not just Denver, but coming after the entire state. And we think that the state has had a really thorough and informed discussion on this and come to a good solution that we don't intend to go back on. Do you want to add anything?
If I may, thank you. Yes, it's interesting to note that the same lawyer who's now the acting chief of the Second Amendment section, he brought a challenge to the Colorado 15-round magazine capacity limit in 2022, and he had to withdraw that lawsuit. And his client later explained in a press release that they did that because they didn't have evidence to support it. So I think that just underscores that these laws are constitutional. These challenges are not by any means automatically going to succeed, and we're proud to help fight back against them.
I'll just close by saying it is a quite moving coalition of people who stand on the stairs behind us, and progress on hard issues like this never come easily and they never come quickly. It is people who have spent days, months, years Tom, decades fighting for their family members to make sure these are passed. They are young activists who have fought at the state capitol, survivors who've brought these issues to legislators, and we are not going to turn back on the progress that they've made. We're very proud of the way that this state has responded to moments of absolute heartbreak. And I think what we've done is take common sense steps to make the city safer, and it would dishonor the lives of the folks behind us who've dedicated their work, and it would dishonor the lives of the loved ones they have lost to say we will give up because of an ideological battle from the federal government. We think we know best what keeps Denver safe and Colorado safe, and we will follow their lead and staying committed to it. Thank you so much for being here.